Hi, everybody. Thanks for attending this webinar, which, as some of you know, is the second in a series which we're calling Small Business Solutions. And it's designed to help you look at your business in a different way, maybe alter course. And as we return to whatever the new normal may be, help you go further, faster and thrive and help your business sustain more over time. You know, every business faces a crossroads at some point. The leaders or owners look to the future and they know where they want to be, but they're not quite sure how they're going to get there. They're doing fine, or maybe not so fine, but they're surviving. They see the future they dreamed of, the one where the business is thriving and they move on with confidence, but they really don't have any idea exactly how they're going to make that vision a reality. And time is slipping away. So it's important to start with the end in mind, because you need to know where you want to go so you can design a process around it. What's the destination? And that answer about the destination will inform us how we need to build value into the business. And to build value, we have, as I said, to have some kind of process. I think you'll find what we'll discuss today will give you a platform for this. All businesses hit the ceiling, not just businesses. Sometimes it's individuals or it's even departments where we kind of run out of ideas. I remember when I was working for the Coca-Cola company in the Middle East, we were reintroducing Coca-Cola after a 22-year absence. And for 18 months, I was virtually working 6.5 days out of 7, making sure that we got back into 6 markets as quickly as possible. And it involved everything from finding bottling plants to painting trucks to hiring salespeople. And at the end of it, we got launched, we established market share. But after another year, I suddenly found I'd maxed out. The excitement of what I'd been doing, the energy, the motivation had gone, and I really had hit the ceiling. Fortunately for me, the company realized that we need somebody else to come in and take over and run the business, with somebody that had different skills. And so they moved me on to another area, and I ended up moving into a different position, which I really loved, and it gave me that passion again. So we all hit the ceiling at some point, and we need to recognize that and change our course. Well, the problem with hitting the ceiling is we've noticed, and data tells us, that businesses fail after 5 years. About 50% fail. Those figures vary, but that's the figure that's normally used by SBA. So we need to make sure we're not one of those 50%. So some of the measures that we can have about whether our business is valuable is, are we bringing in more income than expenses? Are the sales higher than they were last year? Now, those are great ways to measure our business, but when we really look at value, we should be looking at other ways. For example, could you take a week or even stretch it to 2 without being connected to Wi-Fi? For example, going off the grid. There's a favorite story one of my colleagues tells of one of his clients wanted, desired, and finally got owner freedom. And the way he got that was he had 3 figures that he asked everybody to think about and call him just before he got to the tee box on a Friday morning. And he wanted those 3 figures so that he could see whether we were on track or they were off track. And if they were off track, what they were going to do about it. And that was a 3-minute phone call, which put his mind at rest and ease, and he could get on with his golf game. So can you be disconnected and just have small measures to know whether you're on track? What would happen if you lost your biggest account? Would the business survive? So the financials may look good, but there's other aspects to whether the business is really doing well and we're building value into it. After years of extensive research, John Morello came up with the conclusion that there are 8 drivers, which you see here, which if used together properly, really can significantly impact the value of the company. He's over the years surveyed about 30,000 companies, and it constantly has proven that those 8 drivers are the ones that really matter. Now, they're not revolutionary, as you will see just looking around this spoke, but it's the combining of them that really builds value into company. And we've found ourselves, the resultants, that the more valuable the company, it means more owner freedom, it means happier employees, it means more profitability and security and tenure of the company moving forward. Now, in this series of webinars, we'll be looking at in more detail at each of these 8 drivers. And today we'll be looking more closely at recurring revenue. What's always fascinated me when I first got to know Value Builder was the combining of these together and the power of them. And like most things that are highly effective, it's the simplicity of them. So today we're going to look, as I said, at recurring revenue, what it means, how it works, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples just to bring it alive, if you like. In a traditional business, the customer buys our products or service on a one-off basis, and then we have to try and convince them to buy them again. In a subscription business, you have what John Morrow calls the automatic customer. And he wrote a book in 2015, which was called The Automatic Customer. And in that, he talked about how you can create a subscription business in any industry. So what this means is that you have a recurring revenue that can actually be a disruptive trend, by the way. It empowers companies to grow revenue, it gains competitive advantage, and it increases market share across all industries. Now, let me give you a quick example before we move into some others. I recently bought a printer. We'd had our printer for years, and it's Hewlett-Packard, and like a lot of us who have printers, they're HP. And I didn't realize how much recurring revenue had moved along. I knew that the Hewlett-Packard formula was buy the printer, and then you're kind of sunk into them buying the cartridges. They've moved even further now. They track the cartridges that you, and a lot of you probably already know this, but I didn't. They track the cartridges they use and automatically, based on a subscription model, send you cartridges for when you're about to run out. Now, how recurring revenue is that? Not only have they got you hooked in a way on their cartridges, but now they're looking ahead and building value into the formula. But more than that, they can actually predict, because they can see the data. They actually can see the data of how much printers cartridges you're using. They can predict with some kind of accuracy what you're going to be ordering automatically over a period of time. Real predictable revenue model. There are some estimates place the total market of recurring revenue at around 500 billion. In fact, I'm going to read a quote here from Ventana Research, who said that the increasing importance of the recurring revenue model reflects a shift in buying preferences for both businesses and consumers. Businesses must consider this model, and if they want to mimic it, and how they can use it for forward thinking. Companies that have done that and have been very successful are companies like Salesforce, a $17 billion company now, Adobe, $11 billion company, and Netflix, a $20 billion company. They've all reaped the benefits with new consumption and distribution models built on recurring revenue. So, recurring revenue is an income model that describes regular payments over time. So what type of recurring revenue would work for your business? And believe it or not, it doesn't matter what business you're in, there are ways of establishing recurring revenue. We just have to be a little bit creative. But I'll take you through the theory and maybe the steps, the 6 major steps of how recurring revenue works. And then we'll look at some specific examples which may tweak some creativity for you into how you can build it into your business. So there's 6 types of recurring revenue. Let's start with the most basic. Most of us drink coffee, and the way we start purchasing coffee is to go to a local grocery store, and that sometimes is, Target or Kowalski's or whatever you use, and buy it and bring it home and consume it. the next level is, well, let's stop doing that. I'd like to actually make my own coffee at home. So I invest in sunk money consumables. And that is something like a Keurig machine, where you buy the machine and then you're plugged into the pods that you have to buy to use in that machine. Very much like the Hewlett-Packard model, where you have to buy the cartridges to go for the printer. The next level is subscriptions. And here's where we commit to the long term. And let's use, as an example, Bloomberg, where you subscribe to the data that they produce on the stock market and financial markets, and you can interpret that and decide what to do with your money. The next level will be sunk money subscriptions. So take Bloomberg again, and this time you get a terminal. That's why it's sunk money. You now have a terminal which you've invested in, sitting on your desk, and the subscriptions come in through the terminal in a format that's easy to interpret and deal with. The next level would be auto renewal subscriptions. And a lot of us have cloud file storage, whether it's the Apple iCloud or a premium subscription to Dropbox. But now we subscribe to having data in the cloud somewhere, and it's auto renewable every month. The last one, and probably the ultimate, is a contract. It's a legally binding obligation where you know that you're going to receive a certain amount of money on a regular basis. And examples of that will be doing grounds maintenance for maybe 3 years, and you get paid on a quarterly basis. So you've got predictable revenue over a 3-year period. So let's have a look at those examples I was suggesting we had a look at. And I wanted to start with what we call the $29 sale versus the $4,524 sale. And I'll explain what that means and as we unfold on it. Arguably, the most obvious benefit of any subscription model is that it increases the long-term value of a customer. When you sell a customer a subscription, the one sale creates, in effect, a long-term relationship. So let's have a look at that. By the way, that really is the magic of the recurring revenue. So I wanted to look at a typical flower store. We're all familiar with those. Like many traditional businesses, a flower store starts with no revenue at the beginning of the month. And flower stores pay for expensive real estate because they have to be near to you, observable, and a lot of flowers are bought on impulse. So they tend to be on, if you think about the flower stores you use, they'd be up there on corner stores. They spill over onto the sidewalk so that you can see the great display, and it offers you the opportunity to buy something. So they buy advertising around key holidays. Now, until I researched this a little bit, I didn't know that Valentine's Day and Mother's Day represents over 33% of flowers sold. That's a lot of flowers in a short space of time. And if they get it wrong on forecasting what they're going to sell, over 60%, well, within a week, first of all that stock goes rotten, and they'll throw out over 60% of the flowers they actually purchase. So what can they do about how inventive and what does recurring revenue do about that? Well, enter H. Bloom. They're a flower company with the founders, Brian Burkhart, who you can see in the background standing there, and in the foreground, Sonu Panda talking to the young lady there with the flowers in her hand. They wanted to become the Netflix of flowers. They provide fresh cut flowers to businesses, and they do it on you can order on a weekly, bi-weekly, or a monthly basis. They do it, they don't need to be physically in front of customers like the normal flower store, because they know that they've got orders coming. They can actually have their flowers stocked in premises that cost only $30 per square foot, whereas most people are investing, for example, in Manhattan, at $150 per square foot. So first of all, their overheads are much, much less because they can use the recurring revenue model. Now, the traditional flower store sells a one-off bouquet to a customer, and they may never see that customer again. But H. Bloom signs up hotels or other organizations for maybe a weekly delivery of a $29 bouquet or something more grand, such as you can see here. They keep the subscriber happy for 3 years. By the way, their monthly churn rate is as low as 2%. So they have retention of customers. Now that one $29 sale, if you do the maths over the 3 years, is about 156 weeks. So hence the $29 versus the $4,524 sale that we started off with talking about. The H. Bloom business is now estimated at being around $10 billion. And they're a major player in the flower business. Now, I wonder how many of you have owned or even own a Harley Davidson. Back in the late 70s, Harley Davidson was asking exactly the same question. They were looking for ways to add to their income stream. They were looking to increase cash flow. They weren't interested in finding new customers or investing in new technology to build a bike. Those options were too expensive at the time for them. They were looking for a quick and easy way to, as I said, generate more cash flow. When they really thought about what it means to own a Harley bike, they discovered that there was a dedicated community of fans who wanted to live a Harley lifestyle. This was, if you like, the early kind of Facebook for Harley lovers. Whether they'd been owners or were owners or aspiring owners, these people were looking for opportunities to join together with people that had like-minded ideas around Harley. Now, if you fast forward to today, there are more than 1 million members and they pay $49 every single year to talk with other Harley owners. Well, the maths are pretty simple, right? And they've got multiple tiers of membership now. So they've even taken that to the next level. This membership provides a sense of community. And as an added bonus, for Harley, these HOG members spend 30% more on merchandise such as clothing, accessory, and events. So by being creative, Harley Davidson was able to introduce an incredibly successful revenue stream and do the cash flow that they were looking for. The last example of creativity I wanted to reference really to get your creative juices going is the one around Dollar Shave Club. These two guys, Michael Durbin and Mark Levine, actually I think it's Dubin, they founded the Dollar Shave Club back in 2011. And their vision was pure and simple. For as little as $1 a month, customers would get high quality razors, which would, and the mantra really was to stop paying so much for expensive razors and get them delivered to your door. Just 3 years later, 2015, well, actually late 2014, they claimed a 48.6% share of the online razor market, incredibly disruptive. And it shook up the giants, Gillette and Schick. The company grew very quickly, and they grew in those 3 to 4 years to 600 employees with more than 4 million subscribers. So what made them successful? What was it that they did that was so different and enabled them to be successful? Their proposition was a fair price and highly customer-concentric service. They reduced the unfairness in razor prices, which had been leveraged by the biggies, and allowed you to have a month's supply of razors and blades. The prices were much cheaper than Gillette and Schick, for example. The company followed the subscription revenue model, and you could enroll in what you see here, the Dollar Shave Club. They cut down manufacturing costs. They missed out the middleman. They did it inexpensively in South Korea and then shipped them over here. It was a very simple strategy, low price and monthly fees, which were collected, by the way, before they had to deliver. So cash flow was really good. They coupled this with creative advertising campaigns. In 2016, so just 5 years after they started, Unilever came along and bought them for a $1 billion deal. And this actually was the precursor to other companies coming into the market and being incredibly disruptive. In fact, Harry's, which you may be familiar with, is the top selling brand now in the market. And although Gillette has a number of shaving brands in the market, they're no longer the clear market leader as a brand, Harry's are. So, as I mentioned earlier, these 8 drivers aren't revolutionary. You know, there's nothing that's really awe-inspiring here, but it doesn't have to be. It's the way you leverage them and use them, both individually and combine them, that is really the secret sauce. So what we want to do is help you discover how to leverage these. Now, one of the ways to do that is to do a survey. And so that you can understand how you rate yourself on each one of these 8 drivers. So I want to thank you for joining us today. We hope you have a better understanding of how these work, and at least now you've got an idea and a deep dive of one of them. And as I said at the beginning, this is the second in the series that we're going to be doing, called Small Business Solutions. And we're going to be taking you through each of the 8 drivers, so 7 more coming up. And we'll take you through them in detail so you can understand a bit more about how they'll work for you and how it will really help your business to move further, faster, and thrive and sustain over time.